Good evening. At this time, we're changing the agenda some for the Smithfield Town Council Committee meetings. There'll be work sessions from here on out, and the title of this page hasn't been changed yet, but that will occur in the future. So at this time, do we have anyone there's no one signed up for public comments. Does anyone want to speak at this time that has not signed up? If not, I'd also like to offer any council member would like to make any comment at this time.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have a few comments to make. Thank you, everyone. First, I'd like to wish Happy Father's Day to my fellow council members after a fine weekend. I hope everyone got to spend it with their family members. And I'd like to tag on that and say many of our citizens that are service members are deployed overseas and missing their children and loved ones on Father's Day this weekend and throughout the summer. So I would ask that our community continues to pray for them. 80% of our county commutes outside of the county, and many of that is commutes to other counties, and many of that is service members commuting to our bases and shipyards. And then I'd like to take a moment to recognize an organization. You might notice I'm a little more casual today. I'm a member and a leader in the Virginia Master Naturalist Organization, and we do a lot of work around Smithfield and in the 4 counties. We're the historic Southside chapter, so we encapsulate 4 counties, including Isle of Wight. And we do a lot of work, but particularly this shirt was from a group project that we've been having going on a couple years that's particularly germane to Smithfield, and we do water quality testing of the Smithfield and the James River, the Pagan River, Cypress Creek, Jones Creek, a few other bodies of water as well. And primarily what we're looking for is various types of contaminants, the primary one being E. coli, and that's one of the first things that will result in a recreational shutdown of the waterway. And often the first way that DEQ or DWR gets the information is from a volunteer body that collects data. As you can imagine, an organization like DEQ has scientists that work there, but they don't have enough scientists to canvass Virginia and sample every bottle of water, so they rely on citizen scientists like Virginia Master Naturalists with chapters throughout the state. So on this particular shirt, I just want to show it off for a sec. So Virginia Master Naturalists on the front, and so this is what we look for, right? And we are anti-E. coli in our waters, and most of that comes from farm runoff. We also check turbidity, clarity of the water. We check pH, salinity to ensure that it's tracking appropriately, and all that goes immediately to DEQ and provides the citizens of Smithfield through these volunteers who sample at Clontz Park, Windsor Castle Park, Jones Creek boat ramp, the boat ramp on the James River a little farther north, and a couple other places further south. And that, in many cases, is the first line of defense to alert the the state authorities that there's a problem with the Pagan River or Cypress Creek or the James River. So I just wanted to give them a shout out for all the hard work they're doing. You'll notice other projects that natural naturalists do. If you walk through Windsor Castle Park and see the bluebird houses, and you see the water collection system for irrigating the community garden, and many other things throughout the 4 counties that we support, Chip Oaks, Blackwater Preserve, many other public areas that we do work in. So I just want to thank all the members of the Virginia Master Naturalists for helping protect the citizens of Smithfield and Isle of Wight and monitor our water quality. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cutler. Anyone else have any comments?
I just have a quick comment, please. Thank you. I just wanted to say a big thank you to all the people that worked on the Sail 250 weekend. It was all hands on deck. It was fabulous. Tourism, Parks and Rec, Public Works, police, fire, I mean, everybody. I know all the departments were involved in that. And I just wanted to say thank you to everybody that did that. And also the Juneteenth celebration. We had a committee working on that, and that was amazing. I know there was a last-minute scramble because of the weather, but that was a great day for Smithfield. And so these are just all the events that we have here, and they keep building in the summer. And so I want to tell everybody how much I appreciate it, not only as a resident, but there are a lot of I met tons of people from out of town that were visiting and how much they loved Smithfield. And there were people that I just randomly ran into on the street on Saturday for the Sale 250, and then ended up running into them on Sunday, and we recognize each other, and they're not even from Smithfield. So anyways, really, both of them were really great events, and just want to say thank you to everybody for all your hard work.
Thank you, Ms. Beavermeyer. Anyone else have any other comments? Hearing none at this time, Michael Stallings will guide us through the public safety, public works, treasurers on the agenda. Thank you, Michael.
First, we're going to have a report from the police department, so I'll ask Deputy Chief Meyer to come up and do that for us.
Good afternoon. You all have our report. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer any.
You want to move to the demonstration at this time?
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
In January of this year, we put in for a $100,000 grant. It was Operation Ceasefire. We were granted that amount of money, and we spent it all. It was all from the state, and what we spent it on, these are two of the pieces that we spent it on. One is the Friendscope, which will be up here, and I'll kind of walk you through a little bit of what its capabilities are. And then the second piece actually came in today is a drone. So it is the Smithfield Police Department's first drone that we're able to utilize. And that has a lot of different uses. One of them being crime scene mapping. If we have a large crime scene, we're able to get up in the air and show exactly where things are. So a parking lot where it's, maybe we have shooting on either side or something like that. Or let's say we have somebody with special needs that has gone missing. Now we have a drone capable of utilizing thermal technology, especially nighttime. Summertime, it's not great, but come nighttime, it can be utilized. So there's lots of different uses for the drone. I'm sure that we will have it out during National Night Out. Same with this, and we'll be able to go through a little bit more. If we go through a few of the slides for the Friendscope. So this morning we did a practice scene where we set up a little bit of evidence and we go through and talk about the best case scenario on how to collect it to make sure that we are up on our skills, and then also group thinking to see if there's something that we can do better. So this is the Friendscope. It does not look like it should be $70,000, but it is. It is a alternate light source, which means that there are a bunch of different rays of light that will come out of here. It is a 200 megapixel camera, and I'll show you some of the photos as we go. But so this was the scene that we worked today. We have a firearm, we have a gunshot wound on our victim, a phone on the floor, and then there's 2 cartridge casings on the floor. If you go through the next slide, this is the firearm. So to the naked eye, that's just an unloaded firearm, item 5, prior to packaging, with a serial number. On the right is a unprocessed latent print. So what that means is that on a firearm, this one we actually put a fingerprint on there because we were trying to see it and play with it a little bit. But for this to be an unprocessed viewable print, that is not normal. It's like, typically what would happen is that you would have to put this in a super glue chamber, use fingerprint powder. There's a lot of steps to get to this process. This is the closest piece of equipment that I can say is like movies CSI that I've ever seen in my career. And that's one of the photos it was able to take. Go to the next one. So over here on the left is another same photo with a different filter on it. It's on a slideshow projector, but this can be zoomed in a lot, and you're able to actually see the ridge detail. On the right is what it would look like with standard lens. So a standard light, if I were to shine a flashlight on it with nothing on it, that's what you would see. you would not see a fingerprint. So it's just a little bit more of the capabilities that we're able to go unprocessed initially into an investigation. So right here, our victim was shot in our scene, and this is a piece of cloth that we had previously shot and laid over the victim. What you see in this photo is gunshot residue. So when a firearm is shot, it shoots out the powder. The powder, if it is in a closer distance to the fabric, will leave residue. This is something that is important to us in our investigation. When we are investigating a shooting, it could be on a shooter's hand. It could be something that helps us determine distance later on. But in those two different photos, you'll see little black dots on the left side, and on the right side, you'll see almost highlighted little dots. That is going to be your gunshot residue. That is going to be your primer residue that has gone into that fabric. This is a standard phone. So on the screen of the phone, we were able to take an unprocessed photo of a latent fingerprint. And again, being able to do that on scene on a phone, and I guess the best way to explain it is that when you have evidence, you're always going to lose something between one scene and another. There's packaging, there's manipulation, human error, those things. This is able to help alleviate and gather the most potential evidence for us in our cases. And this is just kind of highlighting what it can see and what it can do. And this is just this isn't one that we made. This is just a natural fingerprint on a cell phone screen. The last piece of equipment that we were able to get recently was from Suffolk Police Department. We were able to get a bullet trap. Sorry. So what it is it's a long cylindrical tube. I was trying to think of the word. It's a bullet trap. So what you do is you would fire a firearm into that, and it would collect the bullet, and then you're able to take that cartridge casing. Suffolk was getting rid of one, and we were able to get one for free. We tested it out today. It works perfectly fine. It is free to us. And what that allows us to do is process cartridge casings quicker than sending it off to the lab. If we send something off to the lab, it takes about 8 months to get back. I don't know about you all, but in a shooting case, time really matters. And 8 months waiting on an answer of if this cartridge casing matches anything else is detrimental to a case when days matter, when we're trying to find out who is responsible, where the firearm is. So getting that bullet trap will allow us to use the cartridge casing from a firearm, get it tested by either Suffolk Newport News, and same day be able to say if this firearm was used in any other shooting case. Real quick, just not really a full demonstration, but just a show and tell of what the drone looks like. This is our new Skydio X10, and it has a bunch of different cameras, and we are looking forward to training and being able to utilize it within the town. So that is really it in a down and dirty. From me, is there any questions about any of the equipment?
Mr. Mayor, I have one question.
Yes.
The images that you're able to derive with that device, are you able to then transfer them directly from that device to the lab, or what's the next? Once you determine that you have an image, what is your next step in order of moving that image to the lab in order to get identification or potential identification?
Yeah, so this morning we took the photos on this. We downloaded them to the computer similar to any other camera, SD card. This doesn't have an SD card on it, but you plug it in. And then it goes two different ways. If we have a known, so let's say you are my suspect, I have your fingerprints already, and I have my fingerprints from my crime scene. Then I would just call up Suffolk or Newport News and find a fingerprint examiner and bring them the two fingerprints. I'd bring them the one from the crime scene, and then I'd get we have access through CCRE of if we had your prints on file, and I would take them both to the fingerprint examiner and be able to say same day, do they match, do they not match? They would, because they're experts in that field. Let's say it is a true whodunit. We don't know the suspect, we just have latent fingerprints and we need to figure out who it is. We would put it on a thumb drive, which this takes raw photos, which is it's a lossless photo, it's a larger file. That's what the lab wants for this. We would send that to the lab on a thumb drive, standard when we would send all of our other evidence from the meeting.
Thank you.
Anyone have any questions? Thank you for the presentation.
Yeah.
I like spending $75,000 on a camera.
Well, it will be out at National Night Out. I look forward to actually showing you some of the lights and what it can do. It is very interesting.
And Mr. Mayor, if I read the budget correctly, I think that we were very fortunate to get that money from Operation Ceasefire, because I think in the infinite wisdom of the General Assembly, they've eliminated Operation Ceasefire. Thank you.
All right. That's it. All right, and next we're going to have Ed come, Mr. Heidi come talk to us for Public Works items. While he's coming up, I do know that in addition to what's on the agenda, we do have someone from Slurry Pavers who is going to be doing the Gray Street work, who will be able to talk to us about that project and be able to answer some questions as well.
Yep. So first, we have a resolution of support that we need to submit our Smart Scale application for the bike trail on South Church Street. You guys should have that. If you have any questions about that, happy to answer.
Mr. Mayor, I have a few questions.
Mr. Cutler?
First, I couldn't help but notice the name for widening. So can you explain a little bit to us where we're at? This is a resolution, there's a lot of whereas.
Yep.
What is the outcome of us if we approve this resolution?
Okay, so the initial application that we made, I think it was back in March, we used the plans that were already done for the 3-lane widening and bike trail that were done in the past. So our pre-application, we submitted that whole plan set because it was already done. So that's why the name is what it is. We're in the process now of refining it to just a bike trail, and the final application is going to be due in August, and you have to have letters of support. And I have one going with HRPDC as well. You need to include those with your final application. That final application will show our reduced scope. So you can't ask for more after your pre-application, but you can reduce it. So that was the idea, was to have something to submit for pre-application and then reduce it down to what we actually want to move forward with.
So when are we going to see something proposed that the council can look at for what we actually want?
Well, and I'll talk to that a little bit, because we've got two parallel paths moving at the same time. As you know, we're working with the Safe Streets for All program as a federal highway program that's going to do the community action plan, which will open the door to that pot of money for construction. The path that Mr. Heidi is working on now is through the state system, through the Smart Scale scoring process. So if we score highly and it looks like we're going to award money, then the plans will be finalized and be put down to a more specific detail so we can move forward. And again, what he's mentioned is right now, this rescoping takes it to just the bike path piece, where it started out initially as the bike path with the widening of the road. So we've narrowed the scope to hopefully be more competitive. So once we find out which avenue it looks like we're going to get funding on, we'll go that direction with further refining the plans.
Okay, so a couple questions related to that. So when is this due for submission?
August.
August?
Yes.
So are we going to see the revised plan before submission, or this
So
is what I'm concerned about? Is I don't, I haven't seen the widening plan other than when it was introduced long ago.
Right, so we will,
And so I imagine probably none of the other newly elected folks have either in an official capacity. So we're just a little in the dark on, I would imagine all of us, even the veterans that saw the old plan but have no idea about what the new plan is.
all right, so we will have a concept sketch that'll be done as part of that final application that we can share. Like you said, we won't have plans done. That's part of the smart scale funding will pay for the design of this. So what we have is kind of an alignment sketch. It looks like Google Maps with a trail drawn on there. But as far as full construction plans, that would be done after, if we receive funding.
So if we submit a revised plan, we're approved, what constraints do we then have to change after we submit the revised plan? Because I'm concerned seems like we're kind of under a little short timeline here, which is good in some regards, but we haven't seen the revised plan. The public hasn't seen the revised plan. There haven't been any input.
Specifics, you can change almost all of it. As long as the project is the same and you stay within the same general scope, you're fine. But like as far as, does it go to the right side of the mailbox or the left? We can change all of that.
Sure.
So those final details, we'll be able to work through the process if we are awarded funding. It'll pay for the engineering piece of that would then finalize those details.
All right, this will be tied to this corridor.
Right.
Because this is a VDOT funding source, so it's tied to this road section. So putting a bike path down South Church Street will be constrained, but as far as the alignment goes, it's open to design.
So we've had some, I guess, not so great smart score or smart scale scores in the past or what have you. Have we done this or reviewed this with anyone else, or do we have any reason, confidence? What is our level of confidence in having a better, more successful application than in the past?
Well, I think the detriment to our applications in the past has been the cost, right? That initial full project was $23 million, I think, to widen, basically rebuild South Church Street all through that corridor. And we've had discussions with the folks at VDOT who score these projects, multiple discussions with them about how we can, score better and potentially get funded. And everything that comes back is the cost is too high. So that's what we're trying to do is reduce that scope and scale down to a point where it's something that they are interested in funding.
Okay, I think that sounds great, and I would have said that I probably wouldn't have agreed with widening South Church Street. I don't think it enhances the security unless there was a significant change. So tell me about after this. Let's hypothetically say it's approved. What happens next and when?
Right. So after this, I don't think. So you have to submit, as part of the application, you have to submit a timeline. And I think you're kind of constrained by VDOT on those dates. So I would say tentatively, you're probably looking at a year of design work, a year of right-of-way acquisition, at least, and then construction would start. So I would say probably 3 years before you would see a shovel in the dirt.
Okay, and then my last comment or question is, and I'll link back to Luter Sports Complex. Okay, we had a situation where we had a vote on the table with a first-time view of seeing a project that was approved by, I don't remember what the vote was, but with the understanding that we can make changes going forward. And we spent a lot of money on advising and consulting and planning with zero public input. We had only stakeholder input on that Luter Sports Complex project, and I think that's a failure on the council's part, and really something that a lot of citizens spoke about in the 2 years ago election was, where is the place for citizen involvement? So we already have a 3-year timeline project that we don't want to drag out, but I would request if the rest of the council agrees, that we get this revised project out, so our citizens can see it, and look and schedule and plan an opportunity for some citizen involvement to give us some input on this before we spend money on planning rather than after. I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I may. Hey, Darren hit on a couple things, but I'd like you to expand on first. I'm going to start where he ended. The idea of no public input. There was originally, back before any of us were seated, with the questionnaires and the master plan and all those things. Probably what Darren's hearing, what we're all hearing, because that is so long ago, I think it really is incumbent upon us to create some sort of situation where there is an increased, two things, public awareness and an opportunity for public. Just reading this, Darren again did the same thing. That's an awful lot of words to say we're not going to do the road widening and we're just going to concentrate on the bikes. And there's, 6 people here and, so this one needs to get out a little bit. My other concern is exactly, again, what Mr. Cutler referred to a few minutes ago, is the timing. If we have to have this proposal in front of somebody by August, when do we get to see more than a bare bones idea and sort of the question that sets all of that up? Would you remind us all what this actually means when we are giving you a letter of support?
The letter of support is that basically that we have support from the council for making this application, that the town, should we be granted the money, will be able to accept the funds, because you have to appropriate those in, accept the funds, and then execute the design and construction of the project. So it's standard for all, most of these grant and funding opportunities. It's some sort of letter of support, making sure the town government, be it the council or city council, wherever, is in support of making this application. As far as the public input piece, like we said, I think a good point for that to be included would be in the design, where we can include that in the initial design is to have public workshops. That's, is done on lots of road projects where you have community input. We set up there, poster boards with where the bike trail is going to go and what it's going to look like, and incorporate them in at that point. Like I said, right now, the only thing we're going to have is a sketch for the alignment and a cost estimate. And those are things we're working on now.
Follow up. So what you're saying is that the letter of support in the application itself are preliminary to actually coming up with a final project and what it would look like. And if we're looking at a 3-year window, you're suggesting that there are opportunities or will be opportunities for public input in a large scale.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you for that explanation. I think most of us are familiar with it, but like to hear it out there for the public. And then the last one, just to confirm, to reiterate, our giving a letter of support to the project commits us to nothing until funds are offered and we begin to move forward.
That's right.
Correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I can just follow up comment. Just as far as the planning stage, you said you think the involvement should start in the planning stage. I just want to get some clarification on that. If the planning stage is after we've already shipped off to a consultant, I think that would be incorrect. I want to make sure we get the citizen input from the draft plan. That is what we get to work off of, and then we get citizen input that we then collate and feed to a consultant or whoever does our design work, not in the design process or planning process, but before we do that. I think it would be appropriate to get the citizen involvement so we can submit those things to the designer.
Typically, you would have that designer on board and have them conduct that work so that they get that information and can incorporate that. So typically, that's part of the contract scope, is that we would include those public information gathering sessions so that they can hear directly from the citizens and then incorporate it into the design where feasible. But yeah, by all means, this wouldn't go to construction without that process.
Thank you.
I do have a question, Mayor Smith. It has been a while since we've actually discussed the bike trail. But if I'm not mistaken, when it first came up during discussion, was there a public input on what route we were going to decide on?
There was.
Okay, so there has been some public input.
Yes, ma'am.
I think it is a great opportunity. Ed, you have my support, but I also feel, I just had a conversation with a couple of ladies here. There is pedestrian traffic on South Church Street all the time, which is a pedestrian safety hazard. So something needs to happen as far as multipurpose trail or bike trail or whatever we want to call it. But it also negates correcting the problems that we're having with South Church Street. So I guess that would be a separate project. As far as the flooding,
Oh, the drainage?
the drainage.
Right,
That's
without the reconstruction project, you're not gonna fix that. And that's where we got to, is because we'd started looking at the project, and originally it was gonna be curb and gutter. Well, to get the curb and gutter to work, you had to rebuild the lane
drainage.
of South Church Street that the bike trail is adjacent to, because there's no fall in it now. And so when you're doing that, you were on one lane that had some humps in it, and the other lane you wouldn't touch. So that's why it became a full reconstruction project. So what we're
Okay.
looking at now is, because they've said that cost is too high, if we go and leave the existing drainage generally as it is today, you can build the bike trail, you just have to be further off the road.
Okay,
So that's what we're looking at. That's what this revised scope is doing away with the curb and gutter, because that's what made us go redesign the road, and to see if that's something that's more viable and feasible for funding.
okay. I just wanted to make sure that I
Right.
understood it.
Yes, ma'am. And so that's why this thing is drawn, because, I mean, it seems so simple, go put a bike trail out there. And when you start looking at it and doing the design work and trying to comply with VDOT regulations, stormwater regulations, it very quickly snowballed into something that was a massive project beyond what we anticipated. I mean, that still needs to happen, because, again, we have people walking down South Church Street, riding bikes down South Church. That need's not going away.
Mr. Mayor, just one very brief question. I keep hearing that we're told the cost is too high. What makes the cost too high, and who has decided that the cost is too high? Is that just one of those arbitrary things that VDOT says, oh, well, this is Smithfield, this is not somewhere else? Or what have we done can we reduce the cost? From what I've heard, we really, other than going just the bike path route, but if we wanted to do this project that's been described for many, many years, where right-of-way acquisition, some has been done, we have right-of-way to some of that, what do we need to do to get, have we been told by VDOT or the powers that be, Commonwealth Transportation Board, whoever it may be, what we can do to get the cost lower so that this is an acceptable project?
Yes.
Right?
So, I mean, that's the meetings we had with, or I had with the folks that run Smart Scale, is the size of projects they like to fund with this program, because they have a target number of, they have this big of a bucket of money.
Sure.
They have a target number of projects that they want to do across the state and spread it across the state. And so their ideal projects are between 5 and 10 million, is what they want to fund with Smart Scale. There are other VDOT funding mechanisms that could potentially be pursued for those bigger projects. But generally, those require a bigger, require more money from us. So this has a much lower match requirement on Smart Scale, and that's why it's so competitive. Why everybody wants to go after it is because VDOT pays the lion's share of the money. So, revenue share, something like that, probably could be used to fund these projects, but we'd have to pay half.
Okay, thank you. I don't like the answer, but thank you.
I don't either.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, so that'll be on the committee or council agenda for action.
All right, then I have Matt here from Slurry Paving. They're going to be doing the FDR on Grace Street. And we have, I think, a video or a website here.
Yeah, bring it up. And this just to kind of help familiarize everybody with what's going on. And I'll give you a little bit about the project in particular. So if you get any calls or anything like that, you can direct them to this website or you can direct them to us to answer any questions. But speaking of one thing leading to another, so the reason that you have to get into FDR is kind of like your great grandma's house when, you put a patch here and a patch here and a patch here, and then finally it's like you better just re-sign the whole thing. So that's what we're doing on a few of these roads here, and we started today on Newtown Haven. We expect that to last about a week and a half. Then we'll go to Reynolds Drive, which is going to be about 3 weeks. And then we'll get on Grace Street, starting mid to late July. There is some preliminary work that needs to be done there. We've got some utilities that need to be adjusted, and there's some curb and gutter work to do on there. But this isn't our first rodeo. We've done this, I don't know, in Middleburg, where they had two different options, actually. One of them was a deep mill and fill. Did all those up on the north side, and then they did FDR down on the lower side. And in 3 years, the cracks were back on the mill and fill side. So pretty confident in the FDR process. And just for why you even do FDR in the first place instead of kind of some typical reconstruction is that you get to reuse a lot of the material that's already in the road. Now, as I'll show you in part of the process, you'll mill some of that off because you have to get it below grade, to get your asphalt on top. But with the huge piles of milled asphalt laying around all over the state, FDR is a great way to rebuild a road and use up as much of that as you can. So that's what we're doing here, and we appreciate the fact that we get to do this kind of reconstruction and that we're in the community. So we're here as a resource if you need us. But I'll show y'all. How do you scroll? Okay. This is just showing, some of the projects we've done. FDR is used everywhere, including neighborhoods, airports, interstates, the whole 9 yards, and we've done it everywhere. One of the reasons is the cost to do it at times can be anywhere from 30 to 50% less, so that's why we're doing FDR in the first place. And we use up to 50% less. Well, there's 50% less, almost 50% less pollution into the air because of all the trucking and stuff that is eliminated by using a lot of the resources that are. And it just lasts longer. Okay, that's the beautiful part of it. Here's the downside. Within the town, it's construction. We are tearing the whole road apart. And what happens when you tear the whole road apart? You're going to generate dust. We do everything possible known to man to reduce the dust. Skirts and water and things. But what we're adding during the process, you add cement in this case into the material, and that gets churned up. So you've got that. So on a windy day, you can't control the environment. You might get a little bit of that somewhere. But generally, it's not bad. The other thing is noise. We're grinding up roads, eating them up and putting them back down, and so that generates noise. It's during the day. Like I said, in Middleburg, we were doing it in front of restaurants. Everyone survived. The specimen trees survived. So that's not a huge thing. There are going to be disruptions because you are tearing up the road. Now,
after the process, before the asphalt gets on there, it's a drivable surface. So after the milling, it's a drivable surface. After the full depth recycling process, it's a drivable surface. And then for when the asphalt goes on, obviously, it's a drivable. And I understand that the town has been really good about trimming all the trees, so we don't get into any of that kind of stuff. I actually came down Grace Street, you know, with all the crepe myrtles, and, you know, was very happy that we weren't gonna be the bad guy for trimming those guys up. So that's pretty much, that's the stuff that people can expect that they might have concerns with. They're just, it's unavoidable when you're, and whether we were doing FDR or you were reconstructing and just digging the whole thing up, you're gonna have all that anyway. But real quickly, the process, and this website is live, it's neighborhoodfdr.com. Everyone can go to it and see, and there's contact information here if anyone has
And
questions.
we have that, so we'll post it out after today to make sure everybody has access to it.
So during the process, like I said, you're gonna mark utilities to make sure you're not running over things. Sometimes you don't know what you'll find. Like I said, in Middleburg, we found wooden pipes. Who knew? And residents will get notices at least 3 days prior, but we'll try and keep, you know, you guys update obviously with stuff, so keep that up. Then of course, we're gonna mill off a little bit of the top. And then that big, beautiful working is gonna come through there and it's gonna kind of chew everything up, put it back down. That gets flattened. Like I said, then it's drivable after it's graded and rolled. I don't. Flip the page. And then it gets repaved, plan mix asphalt. There's a video, I don't know, you guys don't want to watch this video, you can watch it on your own time, but it goes through the whole process and shows everything that happens during that process. So you guys can take a look at that. But other than that, that is pretty much all there is to an FDR project. Obviously, we are, you know, available if needed.
I do have a quick question. So we're saying Grace Street, but does that also include Thomas Street?
I believe so. It was, the project extends, I believe, go from South Church Street around to Main.
And yeah, 'cause it goes all the way, because at one point there was a discussion that was going to stop at Cary Street, and, you know, just asking if it's all of Grace Street.
Yeah. Today's literature said from Main to Church.
Into church, okay.
Pull this map up. So you block from block to block. Can we get back to you?
All right, that's fine.
And
I'll get that map
Yeah.
from him and we'll send it out.
two things I know there's going to be questions about. Can you
Yeah.
talk about duration and what we should expect as far as like vibrations from it?
Duration,
As
specifically.
far as from when you move on site to when you're complete.
So, yeah, let me go back to that again.
Okay.
Newtown, 1.5 weeks.
Okay.
Reynolds Drive, 3 weeks. And Grace Street, we'll get back to you. I think there are some considerations. I think there's a couple of things that, when I asked Lewis about that from a project management standpoint,
Okay.
they were considering before they do an action plan on that
Okay.
street. But
Sounds good. And
And
then
what was-
vibration?
vibration, okay, so, yes. You will have vibration from all the machinery, except for the paving. We have damp dampeners. Like the latest technology on vibration reduction from the machinery is on the machinery. But there is vibration. I mean, when you are talking about like the sheep's foot roller, which is the one that looks like knobby tires, it's a roller, you know, that they have to vibrate in order to get everything to compact properly when they're doing it. And of course, vibration will travel through the ground. So when somebody's going up and down a street, you know, let's say you're in your house, or, I mean, think the Lord, it's not like, again, going back to Middleburg is the one that just sticks in my mind, because we were, like, the deck on the restaurant was 4 feet from the side of the road, you know, people were trying to eat, you know, lunch or whatever. You'll feel it, you know, probably as it's going next to your house. If you're sitting there and going, oh yeah, I can kind of feel some vibration or whatever, just because of what it is. But I don't think it's like, it's not like a earthquake kind of vibration. You know, it's, you can.
Well, I think the concern with the vibration, since it's a historic district, many of the homes there are 100-year-old homes or more.
Right.
That there were issues with windows cracking. There was some utility work done, and on one end, I have heard from some residents that they had some issues with because they're older windows that.
Yeah.
And they were even
I've
on the
been
back
there.
of the house that had cracks on. I mean, I don't know if there's any way to.
And that's my follow-up
Stop
question.
that,
Do you all
yeah.
have a brochure or a handout? We get, those of us in 150-year-old homes, dump trucks will crack the plaster walls, you know, up and down. Have you done this enough to where there are suggestions or things that homeowners can do into the
Let me
interior?
get back to you. I mean, I don't know that we have ever produced anything in that regard. But I can find out from maybe some of the other towns if they had some suggestions to help us.
That'd be great, thanks.
Mr. Mayor, quick question. You'll recall, we were going down this path about a year ago, and then all of a sudden, right at the very imminent last moment, came up with a drainage issue that had to be recalculated, and that's why we're here now, a year later, at least my understanding. Is everybody on the same sheet of music, and all the calculations been done, and everything been done correctly to make sure that that issue that was of such dire importance has been abated?
That's my understanding, yes. I mean, in my conversations I've had with VDOT, I don't see them changing. These guys are already mobilized and under contract. I mean, their equipment is at the old Little's parking lot area there where they're staging, so I can't see anything that would.
You know, I would have felt, in all due respect, I would have felt a lot better if somebody from VDOT, what's our engineer that comes here from time to time?
Gotham, but I don't know that
Gotham. He's the
over
one,
this.
he's the one that pulled the pin on it the last
Yeah.
time, and
Right.
I would just really want
Okay.
to make sure that he is satisfied that when we do this, we don't end up with the same drainage problem that we were trying to avoid the last time. That's my only concern.
Well, and then who does
Inspection.
but who does the repair work on James Street? Because James is where a lot of the drainage work was done. How is that part of this?
It's not part of their work.
Okay.
No, that is, spoken to VDOT about that, and they didn't give me an answer of how it was going to be done, but they were going to do it. So I don't know if they were going to try to change it with these guys, or if they were going to have a different paving contract do it, because that should just be a known overlay. So I have broached that subject with VDOT, but I've not got a good answer back to them.
Okay.
Does that
Little
project
side street.
abut? Okay.
Perpendicular to
That
James.
is, you know, Bridge Street goes this way,
Yeah.
it's one street comes off, and it's probably 600 feet.
And there's another contract for a mill and fill?
I don't know. They weren't, when I talked to the guy who met up there, he indicated he was gonna look into it, figure out how he could either tag it onto this project or get it done in a different way. I'm not sure. It'd be great if you guys did it from here.
Yeah, yeah.
Mr. Mayor,
Hit them up.
Okay?
Ed, let me follow up with what Steve was just saying. Our last, that good thunderbuster we had 3 or 4 days ago, that entire area in front of the Montgomery House flooded again and was flooded for about, I don't know, 12 or 18 hours, making, the same situation that has supposedly been fixed 6 times. And I'm throwing that, I took pictures for you. In fact, forgot to send them to you. So maybe somebody needs to follow that up.
Well, right now, they have basically covered up that storm drain they put in.
Yeah.
That I think when they do the curb work and everything to tie in the new grade on this road, the flow lines will actually go to those drains. Those were all built for this future road.
Right.
Because that intersection's coming down, right? So the future grades on those storm drains will work with the new road, but right now they don't. So I think that's what's going on. As far as I know, it looks like it should work once the road's at the correct grade.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right. Next, Ms. Laura, our treasurer, is going to go over her financial reports with us.
Mr. Mayor and members of council, I have brought one of my new teammates with me. This is Roz Stewart. She is joining us to be an accountant. And you want to say hello? Hello, everyone. I'm Roz. She's been here about 3 weeks, and we have seen her benefits already. Let's see, I'm going to grab a hold of this. Up there on that screen, I'm going to talk about just a couple of highlights, but this is the last month of the year, which is so hard to believe. So all of our financial statements are still preliminary because the auditors will come in and make some adjustments to it. We'll have those within the next, I'd say, 2 or 3 months. But we'll talk quickly about what our revenue is so far. As you all are aware, we build real estate. The total amount billed was $2.8 million. So far, we've only collected $541,000 because 2.3 of that amount that we billed were coming from all the mortgage companies, CoreLogic and all of those. That takes a while to apply all of those payments, and we should have that done by mid-month, so we'll have final numbers towards a little bit later on. You can see that $8 million up there is what we've collected year to date. And we've recently collected bank franchise tax, which are $156,000, and that comes in June. It's a real complicated little scenario for how you calculate what the banks owe us, and if anybody's interested, I can share that with you. It's thrilling. It's great. Let me see. It will keep you asleep at night. So if you look under the tab up there that says Other Local Taxes, I'm just going to rant a little bit about sales tax. Mr. Brooks heard me talk about that. We get our sales tax from the Isle of Wight, and they're a bit behind. They owe us $119,000. Usually send about $50,000, roughly $50,000 a month, and we're a bit behind on that. We haven't received anything since April, and that was for February. So I know. Gotta go. So that's my complaint. We'll go over to the operating expenses, and we're right in line at $10.9 million. I'm going to jump ahead to the information that shows about what our balances are in our bank accounts. And last month we talked about moving some funds from the Virginia investment pool to the CD over at Town Bank. We did that, but they were not able to realize the length of an investment with them because their rates had changed so frequently. We were able to do it for $5 million for 5 months at 3.85, and the rates are constantly changing, and they're going to let us know when it goes back up again. I did want to talk briefly about, I'm going to flip ahead to our investments. That's our debt. Our investments. Virginia Investment Pool is offering a new vehicle, and it's a fixed rate for a fixed amount of time. We did take $1 million from the utility fund and just moved it over into this vehicle, and it does pay just a bit more, 3.9 compared to 3.75. They only offer that once every 2 or 3 weeks, just depends on when they have enough volatility or when they have enough folks that want to participate in that. That shows what our rates are, and rates are declining just slightly, although they're starting to level out. And we are in compliance with our investment policy, which is really good. Current right now, overall earnings for the year are, flip back to that one, $836,853, and we'll probably realize about $60,000 this month. Okay. Any questions on that?
Mr. Mayor, I have some questions. First, so I just don't recall from last year. So you said this is the last year of the budget, or last month of the budget. So next month, are we going to see a day one, but starting spreadsheet, or are we going to see the conclusion spreadsheet?
Whichever you like.
Well, maybe some of my questions might help. I think it might be helpful to see some of what the outliers are. And I noticed a couple trends. One trend is in maintenance contracts. And I noticed a couple trends across various departments. I'll say page 12, you can look at, let me see. Maintenance contracts was at 336% of budget, 3,000 spent, 10,000 for town manager, and then we have that similar again, contracted services on page 17 for Windsor Castle Park. And I don't have them all ready to go through today, but there was a couple of other contracted services, and if you remember about a year ago, we had a problem with a contracted service. So I'm concerned that we have a trend that it doesn't appear that we're budgeting, or maybe we have some unexpected items. So I think those outliers where we're multiple, we've spent 100%, 200% over budget might be worth analyzing.
Some of the things you want to look at, as I mentioned earlier, each one of the department heads manages their own budget. As long as they stay within budget, within the overall budget, like if you look at town manager, they're at 78% of their budget. They are managing within that bottom line budget number. What we do is I encourage the individual department heads to look at their budget. If they're over or under, we can make appropriations to move it from one budget line to another. And that's frequently how it works. Like I probably overspent on contracts this year because we purchased a new software. So I'll move things around in those categories. As long as you stay below your budgeted amount, then doesn't bear any concern, I should say. But
well, that kind of makes sense, but since we've had problems with contracts in the past, and now I'm thinking of a contract where, and I operate under contracts in my business, and I hand the vice mayor a contract, and it says, your bill this year is going to be $1,000. And then at the end of the year, your bill is 336% of what I said it was going to be. And so I understand those some things happen like that, but when we're in the budgeting process, it just seems like specifically for contracts specifically that we would have greater granularity on what we truly expect to see for the year. And we've got several departments with 200% and 300% contractor outlays over budget. So that's why I'm bringing it up.
And that's understandable, but one of the things we want to do is centralize where the contracting is done versus having it done by department, because that makes it a little bit difficult to manage.
I'm sorry, I don't understand what you
if
said.
each department looks at their own contracts, right, and does all of that, and I think that's centralized contracting would be a lot easier to manage. Because I look at the contracts that I have, like with the software.
Yeah, that makes sense too, but regardless, I mean, I guess for the next meeting, maybe it'll be a little more clear, just if we could have some analysis of the contracting departments that spent 200% and 300% over budget and see why. That would be helpful, thank you. And then page 4, I just want to ask, so we have a litter control grant, $4,000. We have a grant, fixed grant. We spent $5,600 or so dollars, 140% of budget. But what are we doing with that grant, Mr. Stallings?
Well, the litter control grant, what you see there, that's actually a surplus in revenue. It is from the state. We use that to do various things. We do some trash pickups around town. So we'll buy trash bags, a little grabber things, safety vests, those sorts of things. It helps pay for some of our special collections we do. So the fall and spring cleanup we do, it helps pay for that. So it's a grant we get from the state to help us cover those various items. So what you're seeing in the budget there, that's actually, we received more money than we budgeted.
Yeah.
Okay.
So do we have, and I apologize, I tried to look on the way in from Main Street coming into town, but I just wanted to say I noticed that I was coming through Emporia.
Mm-hmm.
I was traveling from North Carolina back home to Smithfield, and Emporia has a real big sign when you hit the border of the city limits, and it says no littering, $2,500 maximum fine. And I didn't notice a sign like that in Smithfield.
Yeah,
I also didn't notice any litter around that sign or anywhere near the proximity of it. So I'm just wondering if perhaps we want to use some of that money to maybe come up with some signage. And an additional question that goes with that is, who sets that max fine?
The state.
The state, okay.
Right.
And then it's within the purview of the locality to judge and say,
The judge.
okay, so I guess my question is, if we wanted to put a max fine on there, we could say 2,500, or we could say something less if we wanted. Is
Right,
that
and
true? Is that
ultimately,
true?
it is reliant upon law enforcement catching somebody littering and issuing the ticket.
Sure,
But yeah, we would fall within the state statute, which provides for that amount.
If I may,
Go
also,
ahead.
from a law enforcement perspective, those signs, most of those signs that you see probably were on Route 58 as you come in, or
actually weren't.
they were on the city streets?
They were on the city streets. Yeah, I went into town to stop at a store, and I was surprised. I passed through there often on 58, and I had never noted that. But it was when I was on the city surface streets that I saw those signs and the absence of
I
litter.
can't remember what the town ordinance says as far as littering is concerned. Remember, Chris, exactly? If we've got one specific, or we just rely on the state one?
So I just wanted to see if that was where that money was going, and if not, then maybe we could see if we need some signage in town.
We can look into it.
Thank you. And then last thing I have, I've noticed also a trend on CPUs and tech. So multiple departments were over their CPU tech budget by 100% or so.
I can speak to that one. When we budget each year for computer replacements, we know what Isle of Wight is saying we're going to need to replace. In some years, we buy more in a certain department than another. We just need to make sure that when we get those invoices, we're allocating them. So that's probably just an issue of when that one bill came in, it got allocated to different places, and we need to go move some of that around.
I didn't get to annotate all of them, although
Right.
I noticed multiple, but there was one on page 12 and one on page 16, CPU tech.
Right.
There may be more, but I just wanted to call those out to attention.
Yeah, and like I said, the beginning of the year, we know what the IT department expects to replace as far as computers. They've got their replacement schedule, and sometimes if one department has a couple go down, we'll replace more there than we would have somewhere else because all theirs are working fine, and we just need to reallocate the funds to match it.
Thank you. And then last comment, it may help us, I would defer to the rest of the council. I feel like it would help us if we had a end of budget report like this, so we could see, we all budgeted this a year ago, and then we just approved a new budget, and we might learn something more if we see, okay, here's how your budget process worked out, here's the outcome, and here's what the outliers were and why, and that may help us be better informed in the future.
Sure. Do you want to see a preliminary before the auditors post, or do you want to see after?
And that's what I was going to speak to is Ms. Ross can give us one that is her end of the year, knowing that the auditors have up to 45 days where they can move things. One thing that I am going to request of the auditors this year is they give us an audit that, and I've been successful in getting auditors to include it in the back of the audit that goes line by line and shows us the dollar amounts, because so often we internally play where they put the money game because they combine line items. And so if you looked at the recent audit, you'll notice it doesn't match line item by line item to what our budget does. And that drives me nuts because then I can't go and look at it. It makes it hard for you and the citizens. I was able to get Robinson Farmer Cox to do that in Windsor. They put an appendix at the back of the budget and it matches my budget. So that way you can see in every line what they did before they moved it.
Yeah, they usually give us a spreadsheet that
Right.
looks like that. Won't really say what it's for. You just need to move it because you'll know what it is based on the
Correct.
general ledger code, and that's about it.
Well, I would say to answer your question, whichever you recommend would be better,
do
but
both.
as long as it is in the format of what we're used to month, so we can look at it in the same standard view,
Yeah.
I just think that would,
Her report will most
Enhance
closely match that, but again, I'm gonna try to get the auditors to match our budget in our audit. And again, they would probably be in the back, it won't be their normal report, but if I can get them to do that this year, we're gonna have them do it.
thank you.
And the only other two items under finance are two invoices that are over $20,000 that need council approval. And the first is for Civic Plus. This is the annual website contract for the town. And then the second is for RDA. Again, that's the new financial software that we're in the process of implementing. So if there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer those.
That RDA's for the year, isn't it? I probably should.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. We have nothing from Parks and Rec, so we will ask Tammy to come up and cover her three items.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. The first item is for a pre-public hearing for 203 Main Street. This is a special use permit under the provisions of Article 3H. This is the conversion of a residential structure to a non-residential commercial use. The applicants are seeking to use the property as general professional office space for their businesses. However, they did request a flexibility to utilize any of the by right uses permitted in the downtown zoning district. The Planning Commission did favorably recommend this application to Town Council for the requested SUP for the conversion of a residential dwelling to a non-residential commercial use. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, just as a side note, I am going to recuse myself on this particular item. I've done business with the Hassels previously and am currently doing business. And even though I've talked to Michael about it, I don't stand to gain any money. I'm not related, anything. But just so there's no misunderstanding, if we're to discuss this, I'll go sit in the back. So
Thank you.
thank you.
The second item is a pre-public hearing discussion for a special use permit for 409C Main Street. This is in order to operate a private school in accordance with Article 3H. The proposed private school will be an expansion of the micro school, which is known as Great Oaks Learning. It presently operates at 102 Underwood Lane. The proposed new location would be to the rear of the existing Underwood Lane location. It is intended to employ 3 to 4 adults and accommodate an enrollment of not more than 18 students on any given afternoon and offer one-on-one small group tutoring in the evenings. Drop-off and pickup for the expanded location will occur at 102 Underwood Lane and will be staggered to avoid interrupting daily traffic flow. The Planning Commission did favorably recommend this application to Town Council for the requested SUP for the proposed private school at 409 Main Street, Unit C. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I can add a couple points for the council. Ms. Edwards spoke to us at the Planning Commission, gave a great presentation. I just wanted to carry on a couple of her points. One was there is no school like this within 5 states of Virginia. 2, she created this, you know, when she brought this to us before, when she started her business and then brought this to us, she started the micro school and doing very small And then the need was so great in our community that she was feeling, she sought to expand to a regular classroom, daytime classroom, and immediately had a wait list. Filled every seat and had a wait list. So this is a much needed element in our community. From paraphrase, but it kind of catches some of the kids that slip through the cracks, so to speak. And she gave a very compelling discussion. I would encourage everyone, if you have time, to go back and look at it. It was very nice.
May I ask a question of Mr. Cutler? Did the element, as we dealt with it in the initial application, the element of safety came up. We had to do some modifications or whatever. Was the additional number of pupils that will be there, was there any discussion about creating any safety concerns or anything along that way?
I don't recall any safety concerns. Now, this classroom will specifically, and if you look at the attachments, that building that's adjacent between the car wash and the corner, the original building on the corner, and it's the first floor basement, and it looked to me, I drove through, and it looked like a rear entrance to that, and then picking up at the residence on the corner. So they will be coming, I'm assuming, it would have been a good question to ask, actually. I wish I'd asked it, but I'm guessing that they're going to come from the back door to the back door of the home. Mm-hmm. But we might need to ask that question. But when I was there in person, just taking a look around before the meeting, I didn't notice anything in particular.
Good deal. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item is a proffer amendment for the development at Cypress Crossing. This was a rezoning out in the county before it was annexed in back in the 90s. The project is now coming to fruition through the mod wash and the pump station and the commercial parcels that are out there at T-Pen 2201005H. The applicant owner has provided a proffer statement that is in line with what he's proposing to develop, and we included in your packet comments from VDOT. Once the owner developer did receive those comments from VDOT, they did update the proffer statement to reflect those items. Thank you.
Anyone have any questions for Tammy? Thank you.
Okay. All right. The next three items I'll spearhead, and Mr. Cutler had asked for these to be on here so we can discuss them and how council wants to move forward. First is discussion of speed limit reduction efforts. And so I'll let you kick that off and we can go where we go.
All right, great. So I kind of got onto this speed limit reduction thoughts and just wanted to have a discussion with the council and see. I had gotten a lot of feedback from citizens and some discussion as it relates to the park-to-park trail, reducing that speed limit on Church Street for the element that would have the trail. Reducing speed limits obviously reduces fatalities if there's a collision or somebody's run over, I suppose, but it's not a perfect solution. But I had just thought, the approaches into town, and one of the things that we can do, I think, from, say, Luter Sports Complex, we have kind of a hodgepodge of speed limits coming through there, and we have an elementary school currently full of students, and I think we have a non-compliant school zone already coming through there, if I'm not mistaken. That was discussed in the revamping of that intersection. So we go 25, 35, 45 in about 3/4 of a mile maybe. However, if we went down to 25 all the way to Luter Sports Complex, our pedestrians from Jersey Park, our pedestrians from the neighborhoods just across the street, and then all through the historic district, and then the original purpose of the park-to-park trail, connecting parks to other parks. And now we have a safer transit if we follow that park-to-park trail from Royal Farms to Luter Sports Complex and reduce the speed limit, the span of that trail. We could enhance the safety for our citizens. It would also provide some fringe benefits to our citizens, and this would be something, I would say, I'm not I'm not that intelligent on. I've never owned a golf cart. But one thing it would do is allow golf carts greater access into town. I think part of this discussion, we may need to get some research or learn something about how we deal, if we were to do that, how we deal with parking for that. You know, is it safer and what additional considerations would we have to take into place? But I think that so Luter Sports Complex as a whole and the expansion of it and all of the additional events that are going to come with that and the connectivity future for local businesses that may have an element there. So I think that a starting point, you know, would be Luter Sports Complex to Royal Farms. We already have our longest 25 section is leaving town, going by the plant, and it's 25 all the way past the plant for good reason because of all those pedestrians crossing the street. And we are going to have that at the intersection of Royal Farms, I believe, right? We are going to have a crosswalk, and then we're going to have all those pedestrians or bikes either coming up an alternative route or up South Church Street. But the speed limit reduction in that area would improve, I think would be quality life improvement for everyone on that street, and allow, much like the other stretches of town where speed limits are increasing as you're leaving, say Cary Street, for example, where you're coming through, I believe it's 25 and then goes to 45, I believe. So as those speed limits are increasing, stacking going out, I noticed as I was going to the Public Works office the other day, I think what we see is pedestrians racing to meet those elevated speed limits as they're leaving town, and that's what the residents are observing, perhaps. So if we had a consistent speed limit on those approaches, that was the same until you got to the town line or thereabouts, or to a defined point, maybe we would see less of that racing to the speed limit. But I'm not an expert on that, but I think it's worth us all discussing and seeing if there's a needed change and then our avenues with the state to get that done.
I'd be glad to follow that up. Might have said something about that first or second meeting ever. I would actually like to see a complete study done where the town of Smithfield goes 25 everywhere, inside 10, the bypass in every direction, and 20 on Main and 20 on Grace. It's the idea of bringing the entire town down to a safer, slower, more civilized thing. I mean, the traffic on South Church, you almost have to time your life, you know, coming in at some of those places where VDOT won't give us lights. The good fact, I guess, that nobody's been killed out in front of Cure Coffee Shop, you know, in the morning or in the evening. I mean, it's 25 from the plant to the stoplight, and people go past there daily, 35, 40 miles an hour, easy. So sort of piggyback on what Darren had said, I think it's way past time that we do some sort of study and, again, talk to our citizens and get some input. Obviously, would be inconvenient for a while, but anything that reduces danger for our pedestrians and our bikes. I don't own a golf cart either, but I've been to a lot of towns where those have become, you know, second nature. It's part of our overall comprehensive plan. There was a lot of talk about it when we did all those citizen input when the last comprehensive plan was built. So anything that we can do to control speeding in town, make it safer for our folks, improve the golf cart movement. I would love to see council endorse that and get together with Chris and his folks and, you know, see what sort of impact that would have on police and all of those things.
Well, I can comment to that because I was chief of police when we reduced the speed limit from 30 to 25 coming out of Moonfield Drive. John Roth, you never heard the hue and cry of opposition that you would ever hear that we heard as police department and the town council heard it. The reason we changed it is because under statute, that's a residential area through there. By code, by design, that speed limit had to be 25 miles per hour. I worry when you start talking about a 5-lane highway that you're going to reduce to 25, It's a lot of other things and unintended consequences you have to be concerned about, because that doesn't necessarily make it safer. I mean, you can traffic will tend to bottleneck. It'll not clear as quickly. There's a lot of timing issues that it looks like it might be better, but I think VDOT would tell you that it's not necessarily that way. And golf carts out there on a 5-lane highway, also on a bridge, such as South Church Street Bridge, the one we just had done, that has a hump to it, and somebody comes over that hump where you can't see the other side of that hump, and a golf cart's on the other side of it, this is just a former state trooper coming out of me. I gotta be quite honest with you from a highway safety perspective. A lot of these things tend to worry me. Downtown as well, although it's 25 through there now, if you open up, everybody talks about the historic and the nice quaint scenario that we have. I think you'll find that golf carts running a buzz all over everywhere may not lend toward that type of environment that you're trying to protect. That's just my personal opinion. Everybody's potentially has one, but I worry significantly, and I also worry about if you allow all the folks from Moonfield, Red Point Heights, Grimes Lane to come across the bridge and go into the downtown area with golf carts into your neighborhoods, you may be having second thoughts about it as well. I'll just throw that out to you for what it's worth. Thank you.
I have a question about, you're talking about Royal Farms, Battery Park Road. We've talked about this in the past, but I can't remember what you said, Michael. I mean, in the coming years, there's going to be more traffic, and it's, again, one of those roads that's from Church Street to Battery Park Road, or Nike Park Road, excuse me. It does go, it's a 25 to 35 to 45 thing. I don't know at what point, because there are more roads that driveways, what, you know, some of them are going to be private because the villas and then the cottages, those are private roads. So sometimes those aren't always taken into account the same way a cross street is. Same way too, if we want to make it more pedestrian friendly, there has to be more cross streets in there. For pedestrians, more crosswalks and stuff like that. So I don't have an answer to that. I would defer to experts, but I think your idea of a study is good.
Yeah, I was going to say, initially, what I wanted from this conversation is just this, to kind of get what council is thinking, what you're feeling, so that we can go back and do the research on what can we do.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you right off the bat, the South Church Street and 258 are both VDOT roads, so we would have to work with them to find out what they would do, and normally they're going to do it based off of a safety study, and if it says 35, they're going to put it 35, and that's what it's going to be. So we can talk to them. Town-wide, we can look at that, because you do see towns all the time that say 25 unless otherwise posted. So we can look at the statutory limitations of what we can and can't do, and then we can, kind of go from there. But at least this will give me what I need to go look and say, all right, this is the direction I think council wants to go. What can we do with this? So, if there's inputs on any of the rest of that, I'd be glad to take it so we can go back and make sure we're researching the right things.
If I can just add one more comment, Mr. Mayor, for Mr. Stallings. Yeah, the pedestrian safety, and if we're going to do a study, or if we can, if you solicit data from VDOT or whatever it is, that's kind of what I would be curious about, the pedestrian safety and that safety traffic study you're talking about. So in this hypothetical where we build the park trail and it now exists the full length on this, well, let's say, Royal Farms to Luder Sports Complex.
Right.
So and this would be the time to ask VDOT or whoever, because it may be that as we construct that trail, there's some safety elements that we need to put in to provide elements of separation, particularly on the bridge. And while the golf cart it may be a side effect, I feel like, as I see people traversing the bridge on a routine basis on foot, bicycle, and the like, while I understand what you were saying, you know, there's that horizon effect when you come over that certainly is an effect, but it's with any vehicle, but the car is the safest one if you're going to get hit in it coming over that horizon. But if we were lowering the speed, though, in theory, a slower accident is a less dangerous accident. So while I don't think we're seeing the real pedestrian traffic on South Church Street like we may see when the trail's finished, but through that escalating speed limit section on Main Street leaving town, we got a lot of pedestrian traffic over there. There is a lot of movement to 7-Eleven, there's a lot of movement crossing the highway, there's a lot of movement to Looter Sports and to the football fields and baseball fields on foot. And that section of town where people are racing in and out, I think, while we may have an unintended consequence, but if there's some data where we can for that'd be helpful, because I think that particular high pedestrian section.
I think before it's over, you're going to have to ask VDOT. Basically, if you're considering this, my suggestion would be ask VDOT for the moon from a limitation perspective, see what their response is, and see whether they're going to do the traffic study, whether they're going to do the speed study or whatever, or if they throw it back at us to do a speed study. We've done a number of them, but at the same time, I mean, we met with VDOT one time pertaining to golf carts. They wanted to put just a crossover. Of course, this was in a 55 zone or whatever from Cypress Creek over there, and they weren't very happy about the golf cart traffic whatsoever at that time. So I think if council wants to just see what we can do from an informed perspective, ask them for anything and everything, and see how much from a parochial perspective they assume control and other things of those roads that are obviously VDOT highways. That's where you got to start. I mean, we're talking about rural farms to there or whatever, and it's a state highway. We can't do anything unless they tell us, so we're better off just to ask before we get down the path. That's what I think we should do, if that's what y'all want to do.
We can have that conversation and bring back.
I'd like to say something, Mayor Smith. In addition to the traffic survey that we're going to do, I also like to know, we talk about pedestrian safety. I would also like to see statistics based on where things are now. What type of accidents or pedestrian problems that we've actually had. I know golf carts came up my first term. I have no problem with golf carts, but the particular committee that was formed to do research on golf carting, I don't feel it was with a comparable town similar to us. They did it with a retirement community, and we have a lot of retirees, but I don't define us as a retirement community because of the traffic that we already have on the road. There's a difference between a seasonal town where you have vacationers, or even if it's a retirement community, you're going to have less traffic on the road and you may have more golf carts. If we had a separate golf cart path, I could agree with it. But we are already complaining now about traffic. I can't imagine what our town would look like with traffic, including cars, SUVs, and golf carts. I just can't visualize that. So if we have another avenue for golf carts, then I could go along with it.
To Councilwoman Butler's point, if I may, Mr. Mayor, I know the big differences in my travels that I had to do in previous jobs. Colonial Beach, for example,
Yes.
is a town that has golf carts on. And Colonial Beach as a town is exactly what Councilwoman Butler is talking about as far as the dynamics and the demographics and things like that are concerned. It's all cottages. It's one little small thoroughfare that's got a few restaurants or what on it or whatever as the town is concerned, but it's not the same as Smithfield, and they allow the golf carts in town. So I think maybe Colonial Beach may have been the town that was used.
I think it was Colonial Beach.
So
because
I've seen it.
yeah,
Big difference.
And when we first started talking about it, we had 2 council people that were really in favor of golf carts. And one of the suggestions was, as Councilman Bowman had said, was the flyover of the bypass. The other route that this individual recommended was coming down Gray Spring Road. That was an accident waiting to happen because there are no sides on the road of coming down Gray Spring Road. So that's just a very example of it.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a follow-up question? Mr. Stallings or Mr. Bowman, you may know it. If we did this research and we did a study and we decided, okay, this would enhance our pedestrian safety, we still have the purview to make whatever rules or what have you. So maybe you can clarify. If we lowered the speed limit to 25, is it, for lack of a better word, a by right use that any citizen can now drive a golf cart on it?
The way our ordinance is written, I will have to do the research on whether you can call out specific roads. Because the way it's written in statute is you can allow them to operate on roads that are 25 miles an hour or less, and they can cross roads that are 35, I believe. So the second we drop a road to 25, they're now permitted to drive a golf cart on it. And I don't know if we legally can, call out, well, except for this section of the road. And how do you?
Yeah, and that's my next question. So, in the difference of, bounding, say, Royal Farms to Luter Sports, right, as opposed to all of town other than the bypass, you can bound where, right, the start is, where the beginning is. So that seems like a complex, but I would be curious to know that if we, what is our regulation capability should we make that decision? Because I feel like, and I know there's some golf cart fans, I don't have a golf cart, but I'm most concerned with pedestrian traffic coming over the bridge, pedestrian traffic on Main Street on the other side of the bypass, and increased pedestrian traffic to Luter Sports as we expand, or even making it better access to Luter Sports by reducing the speed limit. So the bounds of our regulatory limits would be helpful to know.
And the beautiful thing is this community action plan we're getting ready to embark on through this grant through the federal highway will look at that mobility across the entire town, by all means, and pedestrian safety is one of the key aspects of that. So that'll take a look at that and help us maybe make some decisions with those too.
Really interesting, Michael. I had a conversation with, I don't know exactly what his title is, Lester, Lieutenant? Sergeant. Mm-hmm. I had a conversation, just a general conversation with him on last week, and he mentioned to me that there is something now called low mileage. Mm-hmm. It's not defined as a golf cart.
You're talking about a low-speed vehicle? A low-speed vehicle is a licensed vehicle that can go pretty much anywhere, and it's not guided by the 25-mile-an-hour statute.
Right. Yes, that's what he told me.
I had one. Low-speed vehicle, you can get in that thing and you go, because it will run 30, 35 miles an hour, and you can drive it anywhere you want, except, I believe, 55-mile-an-hour zones. 35-mile-an-hour zones, things like that. It's called an LSV. It's got to have everything that your normal car has. It's licensed under DMV, has license plates on it, turn signals, horn, insurance requirements are the same. But that's what a low-speed vehicle is.
Okay, Councilman Bowman, that is what that is what Sergeant Lester shared with me. So I'm sure that there are some citizens out there that may be interested in this type of vehicle.
I think I've seen one around. Basically, it's a golf cart.
I've seen a few around.
It's a golf cart on steroids.
There's some too that look like little pickup trucks.
Yeah, that's what they are.
Yeah, little smushed pickup trucks. There's one on Main Street routinely.
You're not talking about a scooter or no.
These have to have headlights, dimmable headlights. They have to have all the.
He told me that they're licensed like a car.
Yeah.
All right. We will
get with Dean.
Yeah, we will bring you something back on that. The next item, and again, Mr. Cutler, this was a discussion on employee incentives or benefits or things that we could do to make us an attractive place to work. And I had attended a couple sessions at ICMA conferences that talked about unique incentives for small towns. One of them was Wendell, North Carolina. One of them was actually Sussex County, and then there was one in the northern, like New Hampshire area. That anything from 4-day work weeks to Wendell, North Carolina did what they called an employment wellness account. So it's kind of like your FSA accounts, but you could use it for almost anything. We looked into that. The problem was finding somebody in Virginia that manages those. We weren't terribly successful in finding somebody that did that, but again, I didn't know if you had any other thoughts or just things you wanted us to start looking into.
Yeah, if I may, and so I kind of got, Mr. Stallings and I had talked about this a little bit, and it's unfortunate our HR director that we had discussed this a little bit as well, and and not to put you on the spot, Michael, but off the cuff, how many years have we been on we did a 4% pay raise this year, the previous year?
We, post-COVID, once the economy recovered, we've been up 3 to 4%. During COVID years, there were some years it was 0 and some it was 2. But we've tried to stick around that, and that's generally what the market's been doing.
So are we saying about 4 years at about 4%?
Yeah, between 3 and 4.
Okay, but then this budget year, so 2 budget years in a row, we basically ran a deficit that we supplanted with our reserve funds, and the economy is kind of all over the place. So I wanted to bring this up because, we may not always be able to do that 4% raise. We're on two consecutive years of an unbalanced budget. So other things, what we had talked about on one occasion was, we're never going to be, so Chesapeake, I think it's Chesapeake, right? Chesapeake says we're the number 2 employer, town employer, city employer in Hampton Roads, right? Well, we're never going to be able to say that, right? We can't afford that. But we could be the best small town employer, or we could be the best something, right? And I asked Michael to look and see if there was some kind of awards or recognitions that were available to towns that are great places to work. If you walk into Sheets, you'll see this is a top 25 employer in the United States or whatever, right? Do we have something like that for towns? And then to just kind of parse out, and what I was thinking when this came up was, this is a tool in the future that, let's say, we're not able to, our budget's tight, but we need to reward our employees because we got great employees. Maybe we can go to a 4-day work week, or maybe we could go to a rotating, it's like RDO is the term I'm familiar with, where you work 8, 9-hour days, and then in that 2-week period, you get 1 less work day. So 8, 9-hour days to make up that day, and then 1 8-hour day and 1 off day every 2 weeks. So there's a lot of ways to skin the cat. I think it's a useful thing for us to consider to improve the quality of life for our town staff, to make us competitive against our peers that surround us, that we keep them losing employees to. I think it will help lure people in. You can imagine, would you rather drive to Virginia Beach to work Monday through Friday in an hour commute for $10,000 a month more? Maybe, I don't know, but maybe if you had to commute 15 minutes and work 4 days a week, maybe you would want to stay in Smithfield. So I just wanted to open up a discussion about this so we could maybe Michael could get some more information for us, or maybe it's just not even something we want to pursue, or maybe it is. So that's pretty much it.
All right, and I know there are a couple of other towns in Virginia that, for example, on a Friday, the office is closed. And some of the employees still come in because they've got work to do, or you just don't show. So there's lots of those things where they all take some level of commitment, because you've got some people who like to do business on Fridays, or they like to do business on Mondays, and finding that balance, because as small staff as we are, we don't have the depth in all of our departments to be able to rotate a person off. But maybe there's something we can do, and it's, again, it has to be something that council supports and the community is going to support. But other places that have tried it generally have success with it.
So the first time that I mentioned it in a full council meeting, and we had a pretty good crowd in, and I saw a lot of scurrying from the town staff over there, and so it made me think, maybe it would be a popular idea. Have you heard any comments from any of the staff, or maybe this conversation could be a genesis to do, check with your staff and see?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that expectation from the community of, and knowing some of our departments that if we're going to do that. I mean, basically the department's gonna be shut down for the day, and we just have to be okay with that. And, you know, you have to eventually, the community will become accustomed to, well, we only do business with the town, you know, these days. And I think making sure that we have all of our, as many services as possible available online so you can conduct business with the town even when we're not open. You know, that would go a long way to help that. But if it's something that council is interested in, you know, those localities that I know of that are doing it, we can go into a deeper dive on how they made it work. The town in New Hampshire that did it, they went 4 days a week. They did 4 8-hour days. So they just lopped a day off of every week, didn't change anybody's pay. And, you know, but the thing is once somebody gets into that, they're not leaving because you can't go find that somewhere else. So they saw it as a retention tool. And, you know, their vacancy rates went down significantly because people weren't going to leave once they got accustomed to that work schedule.
Well,
So-
and I think we're at the front end of this. I mean, the 40-hour work week originated with Henry Ford, right? I think, if I recall, like 100 years ago. You know, and AI, computers, internet, tech, you know, all the things that take workload off of our employees theoretically, but we haven't modernized as a society, even though other countries, Germany, European, Asian countries maybe have. This may be coming in the future more widespread.
Darren, I think even COVID has changed the way a lot of companies do business now. I think it's worthwhile checking out too, and it may be worthwhile asking the different departments for their ideas.
Yeah, and some of it's the balance of it, because let's take, you know, the public works folks, for example. They may not be able to do the same thing that, you know, some more of the administrative staffs can do. And clearly law enforcement can't do it. So you got to find that balance to where nobody feels like they're not getting some return on it. And so I think that's, you know, we just have to be careful with that and work through it on whichever direction we decide to go.
And the RDO thing I was talking about, that was how, you know, DOD is a huge organization, but then when you get whittled down into Navy medicine, it gets really small, right? And so those small departments and a small clinic, the RDO allowed them to say, instead of working 4 10s, right? Instead what they did was, you know, they worked the 8 9s, and, you know, maybe they had 4 people in the department, and they said, okay, well, we can afford for you to be gone Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, on opposing weeks, right? So you're only missing 2 days on opposing weeks, and that adds some flexibility to the management. So there's a lot of ways to skin the cat, I think.
I think if you're going to go that route, the ones you start with are the lowest paid ones that you have.
Yes.
Because at the bottom, at the end of the day, there's a couple factors involved. Because I've been on both sides of that, either as the employee or as the employer in the public sector. And you can do all you want to, but if you can't afford the doctor's bill and you can't afford the formula, you can't afford other things, and you go home and mom or dad is, you know, everybody's worried about the money and it's not keeping up with the inflation of some of that needs to be considered as well. I mean, I think, I know as a public employee, I even got wise to, you know, agencies started giving out bonuses. They gave out bonuses, they didn't give out raises. Well, anybody knows that if you're getting a bonus that's 3%, 3% bonus, or you're getting a 2% raise that is going toward your pension at the end of the day, I mean, it becomes a gimmick that they thought we were so stupid that we couldn't figure out. It's a lot. So I think we really have to consider those that are working hard, making the least amount of money at that point, and trying to keep track of inflation and different things like that, because at the end of the day, these recognitions are really good, and I think they do appreciate it. Give them a day off, you know, out of the blue is a wonderful thing where they can spend it with their family, but day in and day out, they got to pay the bills, and whatever we do, we got to do the best we can to do that. That's my sermon for the Mount.
Well, but I hope it doesn't affect staff financially. I think giving them this additional perk, if it's 4 days a week, their salary remains the same.
And that's
But
how.
to your point, at the end of the year, when it comes time to do the budget, are we talking about still giving them this recognition and still giving them the raise that keeps up with the trends? What's the end game that we're looking at in this exercise?
Both.
Yeah, I think that's,
Yeah, I think it can be both.
Point.
Also, it can be just as quality of life improvement, or it could be, you know, filling a budget year gap,
Some sort of
perhaps.
flexibility, I think,
Yeah.
is helpful, but like you say, at the end of the day, you still gotta pay the bills, so.
okay. All right. The last was talking about the recently acquired property, and I'll just give you an update. We got the draft of the survey done. That is now being reviewed. So once that's been reviewed, it's in the planning department. We'll be able to consolidate all the parcels into one. So that work has been done. Public Works Director and I have talked about some options for the parking lot, and it's a matter of how quick, cheap, and long-term you want them to be on the order of scale of magnitude on the cost. So we just wanted, again, an opportunity to start talking about what you wanted those next steps to be. Again, once the parcel's been combined, where we go from there. I still think my recommendation is that we seek an outside firm to help us do a master plan for the property. But some of these things are going to need to happen in that interim as we continue to use it.
Mr. Stallings. So I asked Michael to put this on the agenda because we had to start somewhere, and I just floated an idea to Mr. Stallings. A short-term project that has an immediate return as far as beautifies the interest of town, cleans up the parking lot, makes it useful for parades, staging, whatever it is. It looks better, looks good. Maybe we determine we're going to start with X amount of grass, and maybe it's the parking lot, and then over to Cary Street, and we beautify pretty much parking lot, and then all around the Schoolhouse Museum. I don't know what it is, but I just thought we should start somewhere having a discussion, and it seems like a good idea to have some type of short-range plan, immediately make the property useful, or part of it maybe is useful at the front and then farmed at the back, or whatever. But then the long-range plan, and then the part that has to fit in there is this is a big citizen input item. I don't know if you guys have been contacted, but I've been contacted by a few citizens already wanting to be on a committee or what have you. Should we institute one? So that was why I asked Mr. Stallings to put it on the agenda.
And so, if you want, we can talk about what we've looked at as far as being able to make it a more usable parking lot, because we do have events that use it. Now that we own it, we do have to look at the liability, the hazards that may be out there, what we need to overcome to make sure we don't, unfortunately put somebody in a place where they're going to get harmed. So Mr. Heidi has looked at what some of that may be, what work is going to have to go into, again, let's just say for now, making it a usable parking lot. I don't know if you want to talk about what.
That's right. The current parking lot or space that's there has a lot of uneven concrete and holes, old footers, the remnants of that grocery store. So I think to make it immediately useful, overlaying that area with asphalt to make it, safe and flat and level and ADA compliant, I think would probably be a good idea if we're going to use it for town events, and it's now owned by the town.
Well, and that would also, Smithfield Baptist Church using it, right? Is the schoolhouse using it, or they have their own?
The schoolhouse has their own parking around their facility that they use. The Baptist Church uses it a lot. And it seems on face value that that's a really simple thing to do.
It's not. There's a lot of concrete in there that is going to have to, parts of it at least will have to be demoed. To do it right, you would dig all that concrete out, regrade it, and pave your parking lot. If you wanted a really nice permanent solution, I think that turns into a very expensive, full-blown out-to-bid project with plans and stormwater calculations and all that. I think there's, the possibility to, if it is a short-term project. Like we want something immediately usable, knowing that it will be replaced at some point in the future. I think there's, a much cheaper option to be able to do that. But paving over that concrete and what pieces of concrete can stay isn't going to give you a very good surface. It will degrade a lot faster than a conventional parking lot because any vehicle traffic over there, when you put that flexible asphalt on rigid concrete like that, you get reflection cracking from the vehicles. Like anybody goes down 58 through Suffolk, right, or 460, the outside lanes, they have that bump. That's reflection cracking from the old concrete highway that's under the road. So those are all the expansion joints in the concrete. So it's obviously, we're talking about a parking lot, not a 55-mile-an-hour highway, so it would take longer, but you would eventually have the same effect on the parking lot.
Yeah, we talked about 5 years being the potential lifespan of whatever parking lot we put out, because conceptually within that time period, we've gone through the process to know what we want, have decided which pieces are going to happen first and where they're going to happen. So when we talk a short-term solution, we're talking something that'll last about 5 years.
I do want to comment about this concrete thing. We got in trouble with concrete down at the boat ramp. Unforeseen, because it was underground. They had torn the buildings down, but all the footings from those commercial buildings were still there. And I think it ran maybe $200,000 extra to remove and take off site, which was unexpected. So I do know the cost of what happens when you start digging up footings from old structures.
Well, that's what I would, if we were going to do the temporary short-term solution, avoid as much of that as possible. And so if you look at it now, obviously that building was added on to
Many
and
times.
changed many times over the years. So there's concrete poured on top of concrete. You have areas where there's curb and higher concrete that's just poured right on an old slab. So there would be, a still significant amount of work to just level and scratch that site and get it to where you could have a flat parking lot. But it would still be significantly less work than removing all that, which I think eventually it's probably going to have to happen for its final solution, but it'd probably be better to figure out what that looks like before you spend all that money up front.
Mr. Mayor, what would be wrong, or would it be favorable consideration given to going with the master plan involving citizen input as far as the master plan being created, with the master plan in mind to be a working tool that could be utilized for requests for proposals from someone that may want to do what the community ultimately decided should go there?
That would be included in what you're already talking about, Michael, right?
What my intent is, I'm going to start working on a scope for
Right.
a master planning process. And to your point, I think what you're saying is if the community decides, let's say hypothetically, we want a bowling alley, then we would have that as a tool to put it out on the street that we want proposals for some private entity to come build, said bowling alley or whatever amenity it is that we deem is appropriate there.
Well, my idea when I voted to procure the property was one that would not end up costing the citizens money.
Correct.
Would ultimately recoup our investment with a project or projects that would be acceptable to the community. Right. That's exactly when I cast my vote. I didn't cast a vote to hold on to $6.5 million or $6.7 million debt.
Right.
And I think that if we do the master plan with that in mind, with an eye toward requests for proposals that would meet the master plan, which met the community's desire, that's where we need to be. But that's just one suggestion.
But do we get the input first? And
Do
then
that during the master plan process.
Correct.
While the master plan is being created, have the community input. As Mr. Cutler indicated, have a group that's asked to be involved and do that, and get that all in one part of the recipe for the cake that's finished, and then see who's gonna bake it.
Right.
But that's comes from the proposal that you'd already talked about.
Correct, and what we're talking about now is what we do in that short term to make the parcel usable, safe, and more aesthetically pleasing than it is today as we work to that.
Well, I think we should get public works input as well as the professionals, as well as legal counsel that could advise us on liability and everything to make sure we don't go out and spend money needlessly that does not satisfy all the requisites necessary for us to protect our interests, but at the same time, do what the community wants.
We did talk a general ballpark number, I don't know if you want to throw any.
How much?
$350,000.
I was gonna say 500.
Right, and that would be to make it safe. That would not be to make it amazing. That would be to go out there and make it safe
Make it
and
safe.
usable.
Basically, what you're saying, just flatten it out, leave everything,
Flatten it out and
Yes.
pave over top of it, knowing that it's gotta last
Eventually
5
it'll-
years.
sure.
You know, maybe a little more, and then eventually it's all coming up.
Do we, years ago, there used to be a gas station there. Do we know if there are still
Tanks have been
tanks there?
Strongly suspect there are, but I don't know for sure now.
Yeah, we don't know for sure.
Okay. And also, is it in the plan to do an archaeological survey of that whole area too? We talked about a more in-depth historical, archaeological, just to make sure that
There would be
where we're
consideration
digging or.
given to that, for sure.
Yeah, we need to,
Mhm.
I think, look at that as well.
Michael, I have one question, maybe for Mr. Heidi too. Since we're talking about liability and safety, are we doing anything temporarily right now? Because a lot of people use that, just thinking it's to use it any time they want to, and especially with the church and any other function that happens.
We
I
haven't
think
done anything.
At a minimum, we can go out there and like paint on high vis the stuff that's raised. I mean, we can do that at a minimum.
Mhm.
You know, it's not gonna be aesthetically pleasing, but
Yeah.
it could at least call attention to those areas that
Yeah.
people
And we could
might
patch
have issues.
potholes and try to safe up dangerous areas.
And we've already been out there actively picking up trash as we noticed, because that had been an issue along the backside of that property. And so before, the events this week, you know, we had people out, we went and cleaned up trash whenever we noticed that. So we're actively doing that, and we can look to it, again, order of magnitude, we're thinking you're $350,000 easy just to do this initial piece.
Mayor, question. Yeah, I'm glad we kind of redirected back into short-term versus looking at the long-term
Right.
goal. So I was thinking at least $500,000. So what kind of, give me an idea of what it's going to look like. And how many cars are we looking? So it sounds that we really do need a parking lot, or staging area, whatever you want to call it. And it seems like the complications for the concrete and stuff that you were talking about, Ed, are where the grocery store was.
That's
Obviously,
right.
they had a big parking lot. Kind of conceptually lay it out what you're thinking for 350,000.
So I think part of that would be, 2 days worth of concrete demo to remove the concrete that would be sticking up above, your finished parking lot. And then overlay the whole area there with 2.5 inches of asphalt, which you're gonna need a thicker lift to be able to span those different surfaces and give you enough to fill in the low spots and all that. And then striping the parking lot. I haven't looked at how many spaces we could get or what that striping should look like. That's something we'd kind of have to figure out, but there's, different ways to do that. As far as I know, I don't think that thing's ever been striped. I mean, maybe the old parking lot was, but
So essentially, it's that whole area that's concrete now. You're not going into the field, you're not
No.
adding on.
No, it would just be where currently there's asphalt or concrete that we would resurface
Right.
that, not
It's a big
expand
area.
it.
yeah, I think it's a couple acres. Right, we wouldn't want to expand any impervious areas.
Yeah.
Because that would kick us into needing general construction permits and all that. This right here, we're basically maintaining a previous impermeable surface, this is maintenance.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Keeps us out of that whole plans, permits, that kind of stuff, this is maintenance activity.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question? Mr. Heidi, I'm just looking at the Google Maps of it or what have you. And is there an even, I'll throw this out there, is there an even lower entry level? This concrete is a lot, but there's a lot of, and I've driven over it a few times, and there's some really nice areas, some stable areas, right?
Yeah.
In particular, adjacent to the schoolhouse, and then kind of going straight back, and there's no concrete in that whole element.
Right.
So it may not, especially if we kind of rapidly pursue, figuring out the long-term solution. Maybe an alternative also is, instead of doing the whole lot, maybe we could figure out that asphalt element, and we could just, correct me if I'm wrong, don't they do a refresh where you can basically just refresh the blacktop with tar, right?
Yeah, you can
turns it
seal
black,
it.
then you can
seal
line.
it. So, yeah, you could, in lieu, if you wanted to do a cheaper option, you could put less asphalt on
That,
it.
gentleman, that, for what it's worth, I know, because that's how that business got started, Slurry Pavers. They did the entire town of Smithfield, if I recall correctly, like 82 or 83. And they have an overlay, that's what slurry, that's where it comes from.
We did talk about that as an option of whether we could just go out there and seal coat it all. I think, and I think where you're going to is if you do the demo on just the concrete piece, repave that, and then seal coat the rest.
Actually,
or something of that nature.
Actually, what I was going to say is, since we're just kind of spitballing, if we figured out, okay, how much, do we really need 3 acres paved at this moment? Probably not, right? So maybe we figure out, okay, if we can do 100 spots and stage a parade, right? Mm-hmm. And then so what territory do we need safe and refreshed to do that? And maybe it's a third of this parking lot. And then we create an exclusion area in the unsafe area, and we just don't spend any money on it. And maybe we beautify it with some fencing, right? Closes it off the eyesore, but we don't spend money demoing it until the long-term project, and maybe scope down a little bit to what we need.
I'll tell you, and in tourism, maybe I would speak to that, they use every square inch of that parking lot for parades.
Yeah.
So if you want to be able to still use it for that, you're going to have to leave all of it open. Because, even the places that are concrete now, they use those for parade staging.
But don't they normally put cones, is that where the people stand? Is on the concrete, or they drive over
just
it?
to make lines for lanes for people to park in, but they literally use the entire parking
For a
lot for that.
homecoming parade, it's packed.
Well, so then,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
I'll take that, but, so let me say then, could we, the safety element of the concrete is probably a number of things, but I bet there's a lot of rusty things sticking up and things like that. So it would seem like those things could be overcome, and our routine use area could be improved. And then we'd have the entire area for that 3 times a year that we could safety-fy it, and open it up. I'm just thinking
if there's a desire to look at alternatives that are not repaving all of it, we can go back and work on that, just knowing that aesthetically it's not going to be the same. But if council's okay with that, then we can go look at those alternatives that still provide us with the safe, usable space, but not having to repave all of it. And we can see what that looks like.
It's good to have options.
Right.
Let's
Yeah.
look at, the whole thing, half of it, but,
Correct.
whatever.
We can
different
definitely
options.
look at those options.
If you want to give me a ballpark for what you think's a reasonable amount of money to spend on it, we can
Yeah, that may
make
be
it
the easier
safe
thing.
and effective within that.
Yeah, if 350 is too much, because again, it seems like a lot of money to put down for something you won't tear up. If there's a dollar amount that you're more comfortable with, we can go see what we can get done within it.
Well, I would ask, could maybe the staff could figure out for routine use day to day, right? How much of the space do we actually need? And I'll just throw out 100, right? And say you say it's 100, and then we know for staging for a parade we need the whole space. So maybe there's a balance where we can make the entire property safe, but not a parking lot, such that we'd have portion of a parking lot, and then we would still have access to the entire structure for that infrequent use.
All right, we can look and see.
Yep.
And in that 350, is there any consideration for the aesthetic? You're talking about landscaping or?
That is strictly paving and striping.
Right.
Yeah, there's no landscaping or anything in that.
And what we'll say is, I mean, that was from a contractor, but, you know, at the end of the day, when you actually have somebody give you a proposal, you know, that was an estimate, and
Sure.
maybe they wanted a little more, maybe asphalt's gone down, I mean, it could be less than that, but that was the general estimate we were given to start using kind of conceptually.
Right. It would be nice if we could address both parts of that if it's going to sit there for,
Correct.
as it probably should, for another 3, 4, 5 years. Part of our approach probably should be the aesthetic as well. You know, Darren said some fencing, you know,
Right.
maybe, some hedges or something like that. And while I've got the mic, just 2 more things. Not that you dodge it or walk beside it, but having the proper archaeological work done on this before it starts is a non-starter for me, and I think other members on the council as well. We have literature from Preservation Virginia, from our own people, from James River Institute. You know, one of the big things that that pushed us to recover this property was to do it right and honor its history.
Right.
So this is something that has to be considered from day one. And my other one, not to put you on the spot, but probably all of us have gotten at least 1 or 2 texts. Has anybody from the county reached out to ask about purchasing enough room for a school?
No, sir.
Nobody's come to us for that. Thank you.
I mean, early on, I'd had the county administrator and I were at an event, and when I made mention that we were doing this because we had had conversations before, and he said, well, we're looking for property for a school. And I said, you know, I acknowledged that, and that was the end of it.
Okay.
I said nothing ever official beyond just a comment at a meeting.
Yep.
But no, nothing ever.
And you have shared that with some of us before.
Right.
I just wanted to.
Yeah, I just full disclosure, that conversation happened, but it
Right.
was not, you know, hey, we want to sit down and actually talk about this.
Right.
I think a lot of the concerns were traffic related. You know,
Yes.
being where it is, the traffic that would be generated from a school, so that may have been why they didn't pursue it, but beyond, you know, and I didn't shut the door when he asked, I just.
Right, and I just want to make sure that, you know, since this is a public forum.
Correct.
That our public hears that as well, because
Okay.
you know, we're getting tagged right and left where
Yes, sir.
some people would like to think that we've just shut the door and aren't entering into
Yeah,
any
that-
conversations about that at all.
No.
A couple other elements, just real brief. So we talked about the parking lot, so now the columns at the corner of Main and Grace
Yes, sir.
are going to remain and stay in that spot. Is that
There's no plans to do anything. I would think as part of the master plan, that would be good to incorporate those. We have no plans to demolish them if that's what you're asking.
And then the back portion of the acreage was farmed, and is that still?
It is, it was already, you know, under contract to be farmed when we acquired it, so that's gonna, for this year, that farmer is still farming the land.
Excellent. So then I guess, I'm looking at the aerial from the end of the parking lot and then the schoolhouse museum, which is beautiful, and then that wild lot, which I love a wild green lot, but maybe not adjacent to Main Street. So is there do we need to, I guess my question to the council is, do we need to start thinking about maybe mowing some of this?
We're already taking care of
Are you?
that, because we
Okay.
own it now, it's gonna be under our normal
Yeah.
maintenance,
We're gonna mow it.
Which part?
all of it.
All of it that's not being farmed? Is
Yeah,
that-
it'll all be mowed, and whether it's through the farmer mowing it or us mowing it, we'll make sure it gets mowed.
Thank you.
And one last before we jump off of this one. I guess everybody's seen the new sign that's stuck in the ground that draws attention to the history of the property. Have you seen that? Yeah.
That's part of the driving tour. Maybe Stephanie can, I hate to put you on the
Okay.
spot.
Yeah, yeah, Isle of Wight Historic Foundation or somebody.
So part of the VA 250 kind of events happening throughout is that we got a grant to be able to do a driving tour of Isle of Wight as it relates to the Revolutionary War period. So that is one of the stops. We have, I think, 12 stops around the county. Some of them are downtown, some of them are throughout other parts of the county. We have the right sign. We have kind of a temporary post right now because we wanted to make sure that it was up for the Sail 250 celebrations, but now we're going to go and get a better, more permanent structure for the posts.
Is it going to be the regular historic sign from the state, or is that going to be something that we're going to design?
We designed the signs, yeah.
Okay.
So they look a little different. They're more, I'll call it more graphic. They have a title, a few words, and some pictures. So they're more like something you'd see at a park or something, rather than like the metal historical signs.
What is it saying? I haven't noticed that sign. What does it say?
So that particular one is about Pierceville and how Benedict Arnold and his men camped there overnight when they were retreating from Richmond.
Okay.
There's a couple of them around. There's one down at the 1750 courthouse and various places, but it's meant to drive by. There's a QR code on there that takes you to a great website. There's a little 3-minute talk about it. So in theory, you would drive around, you could click on that, you could listen to, I think there's one at Wren's Mill, that's the only one that says you cannot stop here. So the other ones you can stop and observe what's happening.
But they're not the historic signs. They're signs
No,
that
they're
we
just-
developed.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're,
In conjunction with the
The
museum.
250, okay.
Stephanie,
Yeah, thank you for that little spiel.
yeah, and you can just, you don't have to go on the drive if you don't want to. You can just pull that up with the QR code. Like I said, there's one at the easiest ones to find from here at 1750 Courthouse and at Pierceville, but you can just scan that. It takes you to the website, and you can just read all the information about all the different stops. It's all throughout the
I
county.
understand that, Mary Ellen. When Bill brought up this historic sign,
Yeah.
I thought it was the state's historic sign.
Right.
So I was just trying to differentiate between the two.
yeah, before they,
As a result of the preliminary.
right, yeah, that's the one that Joe jumped
I
over.
wasn't sure if you had a question about the sign or you were just.
Oh, no, I like the sign, I'm an historian. Could you give us a list for the, of the 12?
I can't off the top of my
No,
head, but we
just-
do have
just send it to
information.
us.
And if you go to the museum website, that's where it's all listed. If you go under like driving tour, I think.
Okay.
You can find them all there.
Mr. Mayor, I have two other questions if you, if I may. Mr. Styling said,
Thank you, Steph.
the first is, just blanked out for a second.
It's gonna get worse.
I can tell, while you're thinking about
We
it,
were
I
just
can
talking
give you
about-
I can give you the 14 stops
Okay,
if
go
you
ahead,
want.
go ahead.
So 14 stops are
Only
Pierceville,
if it already started.
Courthouse and nearby buildings, Isle of Wight County Museum, Mallory Todd House, Captain John Sinclair House on Church Street, Red Point Cypress Creek Bridge, Macclesfield over in Carrollton, St. Luke's Church, Road to Suffolk, which is on Scott's Factory Road, Mackey's Mill, Isle of Wight County Court, Boykin's Tavern, Wren's Mill, and Fort Boykin. are
The
all the different
Schoolhouse
ones.
Museum is not on it?
I'm sorry?
The Schoolhouse Museum is not on it?
It already has its own historic.
That one has a. the
St. Luke's
state-
does too, and the
Oh, I
courthouse
don't know.
does.
Stephanie
Does it?
can talk to
Oh,
that.
Yeah, they have
Yeah,
their
they do.
own historic signs.
Yeah,
The
that's a
schoolhouse wasn't included because this was really focused on Revolutionary War history. So the schoolhouse wasn't around that early. But I'm sure for some other thing, we'll be able to include the schoolhouse.
So you're saying, excuse me, you're saying the original 12 are all tied to the,
Revolutionary War, yeah,
Virginia
because it was
250 type thing.
specifically, yeah, VA 250
Okay.
driving tour.
okay,
And that was the grant, what the grant was for.
okay.
The schoolhouse is included in a lot of our stuff, though, for sure. We want to make sure that folks recognize that as a really important historical museum in our town.
So, Mr. Stanley, just the archaeological piece,
Yeah.
can we get ahead of that? I mean, is
Yeah,
that-
I'm gonna go ahead and have that conversation with our museum staff and see what their recommendation is.
Okay, thank you.
I've got one comment before we close. I think the trip we made to Edenton early on this year, last year really was very beneficial in trying to, us to get our heads wrapped around what we can do about our waterways. I'm real happy that the 250 sale came here. Tourism has really done a great job with that. We've got the kayak thing down to a science now. I should see more and more of that constantly being rented. And now that we've got the little tiki bar running up and down the creek, it's a lot of activity, and I was really surprised that this little tiki bar seems to be real popular.
Yes, sir.
So it's given another view for the customers or citizens, if you will, and out-of-towners, a whole different view of what Smithfield looks like from the water. And my hat's off to tourism and what they've done, and for Amy, what she's done, working for years with the kayaks and bringing in these things to highlight that we are a seaport town.
Yep.
And I've been really pleased. I saw the tiki bar go. They didn't stop and pick me up, but anyway.
I tried to.
You did. But all I can say is my hat's off to you. Thank you so much for that.
Is it true you reserved the tiki bar for our next committee meetings?
Yes.
It's only a 2-hour trip, though.
Oh, see, we're just got over, yeah.
That's fine.
If there's nothing else, then we'll call the work session